The thermoform train has arrived to yet another station. Bread and Butter Pickleball is the new kid on the block, but boy are they good. Hey everybody, it's Luca from Rackets Runners. Now, Bread and Butter has come into pickleball and they are not screwing around. Right away, they've released the Filth, and it's a paddle that ticks all of the most popular boxes. Thermoform, elongated, 16 millimeters thick, they're all the most hyped things right now, and the Filth slots nicely right in there. I also just wanted to address the elephant in the room right away, but it's extremely similar to a paddle we've already reviewed, the Carbon 1X 16 millimeter. It has the same 5.5 inch handle, it also weighs 8 ounces, it has the same T700 carbon top sheet, not to even mention the identical shape. There are differences though, we'll get more into them in a second here, but I promise you this isn't just a carbon copy paste. Also, if you do live in Canada, we have become Bread and Butter's official paddle retailer here, so go ahead and check out the Filth on our website, racketsandrunners.ca. And of course, as usual, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram, and let me know in the comment section down below what paddles you want me to cover next. But back to the Filth. Now, obviously, because it is so similar to the Carbon 1X Power, I'm going to be doing a lot of direct comparisons during this video, but one area that I wanted to address right away that's a little bit different is the handle, because it's just a little bit more rectangular than the one that's on the Carbon Power. I may be inventing this, but I really don't think so. The Carbon's handle just feels a little bit more square to me, and also just generally a bit bigger. I personally didn't love the Filth's handle. I prefer a slightly rounder shape, but if you know you like this rectangular shape, then there you go. It also has a slightly higher swing weight than the Carbon 1X Power. Now, we are still trying to iron out the kinks of our new machine as to how we measure swing weight, but it came in 3 points higher, which would be equal to about 7 points higher on Chris from Pickleball Studios standard. Now let's talk playability here, and right off the bat, I just want to say how much I absolutely love this shape. A lot of paddles are designed exactly like this now. Off the top of my head, you've got the Perseus, Carbon 1s, and obviously the Filth. It's just that the swing pattern, sweet spot, and maneuverability, they all work really well for my game. It's a very whippy paddle because of how long the handle is compared to the paddle face, and that also gives it great hand speed, which is really impressive for something elongated. Also, having a shorter paddle face like this gives it a smaller sweet spot, which might mean it's less forgiving, but it's also more precise. It's just super easy for me to get dialed into a paddle that's shaped like this, and I think when I eventually do make the switch to a new paddle, it'll be to one of these. I just wish I liked the Filth's handle a little bit more, because everything else about the paddle I absolutely love, and don't even get me started on this awesome design. Okay, so the biggest difference between this and the Carbon 1X is the feel, and that makes me very happy because it means that these aren't just carbon copies of each other. See what I did there? They clearly have different cores. Yeah, they might not be drastically different, but the response off the paddle face isn't the same. So for those of you who might think they're identical, I promise you they're not. There's not really a more eloquent way to put it. The Carbon Power just feels like there's more technology going on inside the core. The Filth has a much more raw, much less muted feel to it, where it feels like there's not much getting in the way of what an unadulterated ball and paddle interaction should feel like. I did not wake up this morning thinking I was going to say the word unadulterated, but anyways. The Carbon Power feels like it holds onto the ball a tiny bit longer, and that just mutes the raw vibrations, which is a sensation you don't get with the Filth. Now, one thing about more technologically developed cores is that they generally have bigger and more forgiving sweet spots. Naturally, as a brand new company, Bread and Butter don't have all the R&D to develop these super high-tech cores, so that raw feel definitely makes for a smaller sweet spot. Some of you might not like that because it is a little bit more punishing around the edges, but to be honest, I really like this feel. As a general rule of thumb, the smaller your sweet spot, the better it actually feels. And because you get punished every time you hit outside the sweet spot, it forces you to make contact inside the sweet spot, which has a generally positive impact on your pickleball game. That's exactly how the sweet spot feels on the Filth, small but extremely precise, and because it is so raw, you get all those vibrations, both positive and negative, making their way into your hand for feedback. Now do keep in mind, this paddle is thermoform, so compared to non-thermoform paddles, it's still pretty forgiving and has, I would say, a bigger than average sweet spot, but if you do find yourself wanting a little bit more forgivingness, you can always add lead to the sides to expand that sweet spot. Because the swing weight is already pretty high, I didn't really find myself wanting to do that too much, but the option is always there. Obviously the Filth is thermoform, so the spin is top notch, but I didn't feel the ball grab onto the surface as much as I did on either the Vadix or the Carbon Powers. I think this has something to do with the more instantaneous feel of the Filth. Like I mentioned, with the Carbon Power, you can feel the ball sink into the paddle face a little bit more, so it goes deeper into the carbon, which means it can benefit from the grit a little bit more. This is an extremely minimal difference. Some people might actually prefer this feel, but when I'm hitting with spin, I like to feel like I can almost grab onto the ball and throw it over the other side of the net with spin, spin, which I definitely feel a little bit more with the Carbon Power. The Filth is a very powerful paddle, as you would expect from something thermoformed, and as you may have guessed from what I've already said, it's more powerful than some of its counterparts. Other than the Ghost, that paddle is just on another level of power. It goes back to what I said about the Carbon Power dampening the ball a little bit more. This just feels a tiny bit more instantaneously reactive, but remember, these differences are very, very marginal. You're not going to be hitting better serves or better volleys or ending the point any earlier. It's just going to feel like the ball shoots off a tiny bit faster. Control is a funny one because the more I play with thermoform paddles, the more I start to prefer them for control compared to more traditional, softer paddles. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but there's something about a thermoform paddle's connectedness to the ball that I just don't get with these really plush paddles that most people would consider dinking and reset cheat codes. Technically speaking, their softness does make them easier to control, but because that softness also gives them an almost mushy feel, I feel like I lose the ball in the paddle face a little bit too much. I guess what's happened here is that I've played with thermoform paddles so much at this point that I basically need that crisp feel to feel connected to the ball, even on softer shots. The Filth definitely has a more bouncy response than some other thermoform paddles, but because the feel is so excellent, it definitely took me a second, but once I was dialed in and finding the sweet spot every time I hit a shot, I honestly had no problem in the soft game. The muted feel on the Carbon 1X might add a bit of dwell time, but because it takes away from that positive feedback, I think I actually prefer the control profile on the Filth. I also just want to add that if you ever want your paddle to feel softer, lead tape is the best way to accomplish that. The lower you put it down on your paddle face, the less of an effect it's going to have on swing weight and general playability, but it's always going to make the paddle feel softer and more plush, and the Filth is a perfect candidate for lead. At this point, we kind of know who thermoform paddles are made for if you're an attacking player who likes to hit full penetrative ground strokes, and especially if you feel like you almost require spin to feel control on the court, the Filth could be perfect for you. It's also one of the best platform paddles out there. What I mean by that is because the feel is so raw, it's basically a blank canvas for getting it to feel a particular way using different lead tape combinations. Interestingly enough, because I am a bit of a lead tape addict myself, but I actually preferred the Filth in stock form. I tried it with a bit of lead on the bottom portion of the paddle face here. As you can see, there's still some residue, but I pretty quickly took it off, and yeah, I just preferred it in stock form, but that doesn't mean it's not still excellent with lead. I gotta say, I'm very excited to see what Bread Butter has in store for the future. We've got a great relationship with them over there. They're super laid back, but also very serious about their paddles, and they're making great stuff right now, so onwards and upwards. For now though, that is going to be it from us this week. Thank you so much for watching. Remember that if you do want to demo the Filth, you can come visit us in store, or you can check it out online at racketsandrunners.ca.